Let's get educated. That's why we're here, to bring you the stories impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses. It's time for a little education.
Why, greetings. Hello, everyone. I am Katie Petrick, and as always, I am joined by the David Fiorazo, who is, I'd say he's getting old, almost like he's turning 100. But no, wait, that's not him.
No.
But something around here is turning 100.
That's right. And you know what that is?
What?
Worldview Matters, 100 epis, 100th episode. Today, this morning, we had cake, and we got to eat it too. And we introduced the staff that works behind the scenes here at Freedom Project on Worldview Matters. And our guest for the 100th episode was Curtis Bowers. That's right, Agenda Documentaries, or Agenda Weekly. Phenomenal guest to have for 100 shows. You can subscribe and get the Friday email, the podcast recap, worldviewmatters.tv.
Ooh, very exciting.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
You had cake, though, for breakfast, basically?
Well, it was kind of a lunch cake.
A brunchy?
Yeah.
Was it more of a brunchy
It was a
cake?
pre-lunch cake.
We call it a brunch.
It was a warm-up. Yeah, a brunch.
Ramp you on up. Well, what's coming ahead for 101 then? I mean, if you had cake today, tomorrow, what are you going to have? Pie?
No, we're not going to, I'm not going to get greedy here.
Okay, well, Pie Day is coming up. 3.14. Anyway, famed TV personality and psychologist Dr. Phil. Oh, Dr. Phil. He just, we'll say torched. Torched is a good word. Torched. Whoopi Goldberg on The View over the terrible impact that COVID lockdowns have had on children. What? They've been bad for children, the COVID lockdowns? Please, do tell.
So Dr. Phil obviously is taking this primarily from a mental health perspective, and he slammed, torched, confronted The View babbling, trying to think of a nice word, but I can't. Cackling hens, the Marxist cackling hens that are Democrat socialists.
Yes.
But anyway, let's get to the video clip because this just shows they will back up anything that has to do with the left, regardless of whether it harms people, youth, and in this case, children in schools. Go ahead and play the clip.
In like 08, 09, smartphones came on and kids stopped living their lives and started watching people live their lives. And so we saw the biggest spike and the highest levels of depression, anxiety, loneliness, and suicidality since records have ever been kept. And it's just continued on and on and on. And then COVID hits 10 years later, and the same agencies that knew that are the agencies that shut down the schools for 2 years. Who does that? Who takes away the support system for these children? Who takes them away and shuts it down? And by the way, when they shut it down, they stopped the mandated reporters from being able to see children that were being abused and sexually molested, and in fact sent them home and abandoned them to their abusers with no way to watch, and referrals dropped 50 to 60%. So
there was also a pandemic going on, and they were trying to save
kids' lives. Remember, we know a lot of folks who died during this. So it wasn't, people weren't laying around eating bond, but, well, you know what? We're lucky. Maybe we're lucky they didn't, because we kept them out of the places that they could be sick, because no one wanted to believe we had an issue.
Are you saying no school children died of COVID?
I'm saying it was the safest group. They were the less vulnerable group, and they suffered and will suffer more from the mismanagement of COVID than they will from the exposure to COVID. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact.
Okay, so many things to dissect there. So they'll defend anything.
Yep.
Go ahead, get your thoughts, and I've got some thoughts on something he said.
I noticed how Dr. Phil, and I would have been in the same situation with him, when he was giving his facts, he was not looking at them. He was looking down so that he could get his point across. Because then when Whoopi Goldberg opened her mouth and you saw Dr. Phil's eyes just like, he can't believe this is what they are saying and what their faces probably looked like while Dr. Phil was actually speaking. So he had to look down, because if he looked at them, they would have been like, just scowling, I'm sure.
Why do you think that is?
Because they're so all about the politics and all about having, it's my team is the best, and I look away from anything that could be wrong. There's nothing that's wrong with them ever. It's like they're God. They worship at the altar of the left.
So there's a point to be made here. They said, they know people who have died. Was it from COVID, the virus, or was it from the COVID protocols at the hospitals, which tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands, and it started with the elderly in certain blue states by blue governors putting elderly people, COVID, and anyway. But something he said, this is where I kind of disagree if I'm understanding his statement right. He said, who takes away the support system for these children? Who does that? So I'm thinking, okay, the government runs school, and you and I talk about how hostile the system is to Christianity and the biblical worldview and to morality. And he's calling that a support system for children. So I understand his point. Friends, they're in an atmosphere where there are other students around and their kids, and they're used to this. They're used to going to the public schools. So I understand that, but he calls it a support system. So I disagree with him in part. What do you think about that?
Well, it's picket battles on this one. I think it's the over greater point of you kept kids out of school for what should be their time to get an education, and obviously you don't have to tell us how we feel about the public school system and the education that they get there. But I think what he was trying to talk about is the support system for some of these kids. I think he was referring to those who have been abused, is you basically lock them up with the abusers, which is a whole nother system to talk about, like where if it's their parents or caregivers or whatever it may be. That's its own entity to talk about. But the simple fact that when he was talking, all of them were probably, that's why they couldn't show them, having skulls on their face. The only one they could show was the one blonde lady who's like, maybe she's the only one at this point who has kids in school, potentially. Obviously, Whoopi is too old at this. She doesn't have any. I don't know about the rest of them. I don't watch The View because
I can't. I mean, I've seen enough
clips.
Point?
But
yeah,
Dr. Phil has made great points, and that's the thing. He came at it from a completely like a mental perspective.
Yeah.
He wasn't being like, Democrats did this, the Republicans are, any of that.
No, mental
and
health.
Yet they can't, just as you said, like, why are they doing that?
Yeah.
They can't use their brain for even 2 seconds if it goes against the narrative that they have put themselves in.
Right.
They just refuse.
They can't handle the truth. And he ended it, that's not an opinion, that's a fact. And none of them responded to that, by the way. Young children were the least vulnerable to the virus, to COVID at the and research has proven that at this point. But they even had an idea then, maybe 6 months or a year in. But how long were some public schools closed?
2 years almost.
It was really unbelievable. I mean, I'm sure the teachers loved it. Most of them, they were staying home and just enjoying their, I don't know, virtual learning. I put that in air quotes. You have to put learning in air quotes. But anyway, we've got to move on here. The Chicago Board of Education, located in one of the most crime-ridden cities in America, has unanimously decided somehow to remove all police officers from schools. What could go wrong? Stay with us.
All right, David, here you go.
Yep.
Name a city.
Chicago. I'm sorry.
You ruined it.
Name a
city.
Baltimore, Atlanta, Portland,
yes,
LA, Los Angeles.
Keep it going.
We can go through
Circle back, though. Yes,
St. Louis.
Chicago.
We can go through most major
Spoilers.
cities back to Chicago.
So I was going to say, name a city where crime is always an issue. Everything you just said, yes.
All the cities I said.
Exactly.
Crime.
Yes, but you had to.
Oh, Washington, D.C. too.
Seattle.
Oh,
we could go on, but then we'd have to go out to the coasts. Anyway, so here's the question. Okay. Why would the Chicago Board of Education, since there's a lot of crime going on in Chicago, why would the Board of Education unanimously vote to take them out, the police officers, from the public school system? Why?
What's their reasoning?
Oh, yes. They just want crime in perpetuity.
What does that mean?
Crime in perpetuity.
Can you explain
Forever and for always. Crime.
In perpetuity?
In perpetuity. in Chicago. That's all they want. They just crime. So the board actually voted 7-0 to end the school resource officer program, as well as remove police officers from the 39 public schools that had cops like actually on campus. And dozens of schools also had school resource officers on campuses. So let's take a look at what they're doing.
The Chicago School Board decided no more officers inside public schools.
Today's resolution is fulfilling the board's commitment to focus on alternative systems of safety.
39 Chicago public schools have a school resource officer by choice. Up until now, that decision was made on a school-by-school basis. No more. Armed sworn CPD officers will have to stay outside of schools. CPS still has over 1,400 security officers that are not members of the police department.
We will continue to partner with CPD on its support for arrival and dismissal times and responses to emergencies.
Some administrators and students spent the day showing their support for this new plan.
My dream is to become a nurse, but we don't have nursing programs at Hyde Park Academy yet. We do have a cop that we pay $180,000.
We understand it is a tough situation.
Others came in opposition, wanted to keep the decision in the hands of each school.
I'm just telling you all right now, the blood is going to be on your hands if something happens to some kids or some teacher or some crazy parent in a parking lot.
All right. Well, I have one comment on a possibility that could have highly influenced this decision. $10 million. I mean, I hate to say that they want the money to go to the teachers unions and DEI and LGBTQ and CRT and SEL, but Chicago Public Schools will not renew its $10 million contract with the city to have police officers at schools. So the safety of the students just takes a step down, and you put wherever they're going to use that money budgeted, the $10 million. What do you think, Katie?
That's what's going to be interesting. What's that $10 million going to go to now?
Oh, well, we have an idea.
Yeah.
We can look at history and understand where that money is going to go.
But it all goes down to the same issue we always talk about. Anytime we have the school shootings, there should be no amount of money when it means the safety of our children. Zero amount of money. It doesn't matter what it is. It's the safety of our children. You don't care about our children. You just want to have these school shootings happen again and again and again because you don't care about our kids. And they say you should pay whatever money. This is like death by 1,000 paper cuts, where little bitty crimes turn into bigger crimes. Little bit of bullying, little bit of, kids fighting each other in the hallways. Now, they get away with it because now there's going to be no cops that can be have to break up fights or anything like that. It's going to ramp up and up and up and up until, there will be school shootings, individual, because of a gang-related incident or just fights that happen, and you don't have any cops, any eyes there to possibly deter it.
But they're not going to blame it on the removal of the police officers.
Oh, absolutely not. They will never do that.
They're going to blame it on the gun culture.
It will be
the Second Amendment. We shouldn't have guns at all.
Other than truth.
Yeah.
They won't. Again, it's like The View. They turn a blind eye. They refuse to look basically at the truth and admit of what it is.
So before the school year, apparently 40 high schools voted on whether to keep police officers in their schools. All but one school voted to keep police officers on campus. So this is very interesting.
What does that say to you? The schools are saying, yes, keep it. But the Board of Education, and I've talked about this in the past, anyone who wants to be a highfalutin politician in these big cities tries to get their start on the education board of the big blue cities. It especially happens out in Virginia, where it's just a stepping stone. So how many of the school board members have kids in the district? Or any, nieces, nephews, any relation, any true ties to the district?
Good question.
Exactly. It's a great question, because if you're not truly invested, you're using this as a political stepping stone so you can go up higher. That's what most of these blue cities have resulted in.
So some schools that chose to get rid of one of their two officers apparently receive about $3.7 million for, quote, alternative safety interventions. And I'd be very curious to see their these creative minds from the teachers' unions. And
I bet it's safe spaces and little padded rooms for someone, if they're having a troubled day, to go have a little timeout so that they can cool off.
Yeah, safe spaces. That's
I guarantee it's something along those lines. But anyway, we're going to move on because the state of Tennessee is one step closer to banning pride flags from all the school classrooms, thanks to a new bill just passed in the State House. And we're going to talk about it next.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on pristine quality bedding, towels, slippers, signature pillows, and much more when you use the code EDUCATED. That's EDUCATED. Educated. Support this show and a great American company.
Good old Tennessee is trying to clean up its act and maybe actually focus more, just a little bit, a smidgen more on education than instead of pushing a certain narrative. And the Tennessee State House passed a bill that would prohibit the flying of any flag other than the American flag. Are we allowed to do that? And a few other official flags when in the public school classrooms. That legislation was basically sparked because of the prevalence of all these pride flags all over the classrooms in recent years. Now, David.
Yes.
When you were in school.
Wait a minute.
Just a few years ago.
I gotta go way back. All right.
Just a few years ago.
Yeah, right.
Can you remember, like, you had a classroom and the teacher had a desk? How much more did the teacher have in terms of making it look like a dorm room? Yeah.
Oh, dorm room. I don't remember any flags.
Yes, correct. That's the correct answer.
Yeah.
Except maybe in your history class, there would be like a U.S. flag. And a U.S. map.
And a map, yeah.
A map,
yeah.
maybe a map.
But I've seen trans flags, I've seen pride flags, I've seen BLM flags.
Oh, it's flags a-flying.
Yeah.
Freak flags a-flying, too. All the flags. What I've noticed over the years, even when I was in school compared to now, and then I go into schools now, these teachers have made these rooms basically their personal dorm room or their own
social justice statements.
Yeah, they put all of this stuff, like insane amount of just knickknacks. It's like they shop at Home Goods, but for their own narrative, not normal Home Goods. So I am A-okay with this happening because people just need to stop decorating these rooms. So the bill that we're talking about in Tennessee actually states in part that it is prohibited for anyone to display a flag other than the following on or in a public school: the U.S. flag, the official Tennessee state flag, a flag that cannot be disturbed or altered pursuant to the law relevant to Tennessee heritage protection, the POW-MIA flag, and several other flags that are acceptable to fly in schools. Let's take a look at what they're doing.
This bill was introduced and defended by Representative Gino Bolso, a Republican covering Brentwood. He says parents in his district were concerned about a pride flag displayed in school, and despite their efforts to have it removed, nothing happened. So he says he stepped in to help. His argument is that a school is a place where a child goes to learn, not a place, quote, where a child goes to be indoctrinated.
We do not support in our caucus bullying or violence against anyone. We abhor it. What this bill will do is simply to allow parents to be the ones to decide what values are going to be instilled in their children.
The presence of a pride flag on a teacher's earrings or a school counselor's door is far from indoctrination. Social representation is not a form of indoctrination. Instead, it is a means of acknowledging and affirming the diverse identities within the LGBTQIA community.
All right, well, fly the Christian flag then.
Thank you.
And
Sounds good.
Can you wear crosses and Jesus saves or whatever? T-shirts with truth on it. Can you do that too? Then, if you want to keep the pride flag, they just want to continue to expand their cult and marketing and the ideology. They want it to grow continually in the schools, and that's how they've got in. They're in, and kudos to Representative Gino Bolso, and it was a party line vote, 70 to 24.
To be expected.
To be expected. So if other states did this, if you've got a blue state, they're going to vote to keep pride flags in. State's issue, but the American flag. Let's just simplify here. In schools, when you're talking about education, in air quotes.
I think you said it all. All right. Well, in honor of the 60th anniversary, it's been 60 solid years since the one and only Mary Poppins came out, and it only makes sense that the movie then, obviously in this day and age, would come under attack by the perpetually offended. So we're going to tell you why the film's rating, you know how they have ratings for the movies, it was just changed from G, which means everybody can have it, to PG. As soon as David has a spoonful of sugar. Cheerio.
If you have a smartphone, tablet, Roku, or Apple TV, consider downloading the Freedom Project Media app. It's 100% free and includes all of our weekly shows, plus lecture series, archive programs, and award-winning animated videos for families like the Presidential Minute, Battles of America, and Heroes of the West. Don't rely on the social media giants to keep you informed. Simply download the Freedom Project Media app from your app store and allow notifications. And we'll let you know when a new video is ready.
Okay, let's go over to the UK on this one. And come on, I'm thinking, there's nothing sacred. We just did a story a couple months ago on somebody messing with It's a Wonderful Life. Now they're messing with Mary Poppins. But so it's been changed to PG because there is a perceived discriminatory language. I'm not sure what they're talking about. So there. Look at that. I mean, how innocent, right? We'll tell you about it when we watch this video. We'll come back and we'll talk about it.
And remember the classic film Mary Poppins. Now, whether you saw it the first time it was around in cinemas, whether you played it on VHS, whether you watched it on TV, bought it on DVD, or watch it on one of the many streaming services, it is, of course, a children's classic. But there is one scene in the film that is now causing trouble and will limit the number of kids that will be allowed to watch it. Here is the most offensive bit.
Aye, aye, sir. Cheeky devils!
Now, apparently, that is a reference to South African people of dark skin, and therefore it is racist. So the movie in the UK has gone from a U, or universal rating, we call that a G, where anyone of any age can watch it, and now it's been bumped up to PG. Because, goodness me, the crazy guy who still thinks that he's as part of the Merchant Navy, who said something crazy. Would there be a kid in the world who would even notice the word, let alone ask what it was?
All right, David. So I have a confession.
Go.
So I had honestly never seen Mary Poppins until, yes, I know, over this past year, over Christmas time. My husband obviously has seen it, and he showed it to our children, who were 4 and 2. 4 and 2.
Ooh.
And right at that scene, my little son turns to me and goes, "Mother, how dare you use Hottentots in this film? I am offended. You should not be showing such smut to me." And then, as the good mother that I am, I said, "Zip your lip and keep watching."
What?
Okay, part of that was fabricated, but part of that was true.
A racial slur? Oh, come on. I mean, this is tedious.
It's all
but
tedious.
We haven't had a good cancel culture story.
We got to get a good one every month or so.
Weeks, maybe,
a couple weeks, and then we'll get it. But as you remember, and as I learned, having just watched Mary Poppins for the first time, I didn't watch a lot of the very, very old live action ones. Although Bedknobs and Broomsticks, I love.
Okay.
But Mary Poppins, for some reason, I never watched. Now I understand it. I appreciate it. It's wholesome.
Good.
It's good stuff. But in the film, and as you saw with that little clip, the character of Admiral Boom sees the soot-covered guys, although they're doing their dancing all over in the chimney sweeps there, and the Admiral uses that term, and it's referring to South Africans. Okay. No child knows their history of their own anything, let alone what is happening, and making any sort of a connection to that. And it is, with the British accent, let's be honest, these kids may not even have heard the term. They probably didn't even hear it. So
adults wouldn't even catch that. I don't think, many adults. But so they say, rather than remove the content, they said they want to acknowledge its harmful impact. Go stop right there. We're talking about Mary Poppins, We're not talking about TikTok or the internet or social media or what the kids are using now, Snapchat, and or all these other movies that are coming out that Disney is sexualizing. We're talking about Mary Poppins.
Yep.
So they're saying, all right, let's keep the content and we'll just slap a warning on it. But other films with warnings include Dumbo from 1941, Peter Pan, 1953, Swiss Family Robinson, 1960, and The Aristocats, 1970. These are, and it's not going to stop, Katie.
Meanwhile, zero warnings for Lightyear or any of the newest videos that have come out.
Yes.
This past year or 2 years from Disney.
Yeah.
And they have whole agendas, whole narrative lines, everything. But hey.
But that's not offensive to the totalitarians of the cancel culture. That's the LGBTQ,
you know what?
everything.
You know what?
That's not offensive.
Bollocks. It's all bollocks.
What?
Exactly. All right. Well, don't forget that you can catch Educated on the go by subscribing on your favorite audio podcast platform. And obviously, don't forget to download the Freedom Project Media app. Now, for David and myself, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for supporting this show. Until next time, stay educated.